I'm Liam Donaldson, and at the time the Expert Patients Programme was created, I was the government's Chief Medical Officer. And it was as a result of an expert group that I convened and chaired, and a report that I subsequently produced, that the Expert Patients Programme was born. That was 10 years ago. And at the time, we had no idea what sort of enthusiasm, what sort of commitment would be generated by the thinking that we did. We very much relied on the evidence base that had come from the work that Kate Lorig did in the University of California, mainly working with patients with chronic arthritis. But we didn't really know how it would take off in the UK. We were absolutely thrilled with the level of commitment and enthusiasm from all the organisations that represent patients with long-term conditions, and indeed we were delighted with the leadership that was shown by both individuals from those organisations, but also from many patients who themselves had long-term conditions that we sometimes call chronic diseases. And so the programme was born. It was launched in various parts of the country. Primary care trusts varied, I think, in their willingness and enthusiasm to pick it up. But it's always the case in the early days of the programme that you need some very passionate, very committed enthusiasts. You can't expect everybody at once to take ownership of a programme, but there were enough, I think, to get the programme rolling. And I can remember in one of the early conferences that was held to celebrate success in the early years, listening to some of the stories from the expert patients and being incredibly inspired, both and mainly about the transformation in their lives that the programme had brought about. They turned from being people who were often very demotivated, clinically depressed, sitting at home, lonely, with no social contacts, into vibrant human beings who were fully engaged with a social life and often returning to work after many years of unemployment. And as a hard-nosed manager, which I'm not really, but if I were to have looked at it that way, I was incredibly impressed by some of the stories of reduced dependence on the health service, and which is a good thing because it helps to release resources for other patients. But that was really the story of the early days, and since then the programme has really built in strength. It's admired greatly internationally, and I think for the future we need to invest more heavily in the Expert Patients Programme, because it's a win-win. It's a win for the people who are part of it, it's a win for the people who are involved in the training, and it's a win for the NHS in getting more empowered patients who know what they want from the service and who are using it only when the NHS is really needed, and the rest of the time they're living full lives. And I remember one of the stories which caught my imagination when I listened to, was on a visit to one of the expert patient centres, and hearing someone describing their previous circumstances with their disease as being like a prisoner of their disease. And then the idea that they were liberated from that prison, I think, was a very inspiring thought to me. So we want more people to be liberated and live life to the full and reduce their dependence on health services when they don't need it. So after having been involved at the very beginning of the programme, it's an enormous thrill and honour for me to be able to say happy birthday, thank you for a successful 10 years, and look forward to the Expert Patients Programme being a major part of healthcare in the UK in the future.